Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the fourth in our series of Sussex Uncovered webinars. I'm Corinne Day, a trustee at the Sussex Community Foundation. Today we hope to look at in a little more depth some of the urgent issues facing people and communities across Sussex. So onto the agenda for today, we'll start with a short introduction and background from myself on behalf of the Foundation. We will then hear from three speakers from local groups working to support people to stay connected. This will be followed by a question and answer session with our speakers, joined by Kevin Richmond, CEO at the Foundation. Finally, Kevin will then give a roundup and thanks to ensure we will be finished by 5 o'clock for everybody. So thank you for joining us today for the fourth in this series of Sussex Uncovered. Before we start, I just want to go through some housekeeping for those. I can't believe anyone would be new to Zoom webinars by now, but just in case, we encourage you to comment throughout the session via the chat box. Please make sure to send all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your thoughts. When we get to the question and answer session, please also put your questions in the chat box. We do have some which have been submitted already, but we will try to answer as many as we can or via email after the event. Finally, we are recording this webinar and it will be available to watch on our YouTube channel in a few days' time. So why did the Foundation want to run these webinars? We wanted to look in more detail at key areas of work taking place in our communities to really shine a light on the local issues and the amazing groups helping to address them, and to learn more to inform our own grant making as a foundation. In March 2020, when the government first imposed lockdown restrictions, it became clear that this would have had a major effect on local people's lives, with those already at a disadvantage suffering the most. Social isolation and digital exclusion were two major issues that were exacerbated by the pandemic. Over the next hour today, we will hear from three organisations delivering hugely important work in this area, covering befriending and social prescribing, digital skills and providing IT equipment, and digital advice and support for women. Whilst the Sussex Crisis Fund is now closed, we are delighted to have given out £4.21 million in emergency funding in 908 grants. This has included, particularly in the first months of lockdown, grants for digital devices to ensure local groups could work remotely and funding to keep communities connected. Before I introduce today's speakers, I wanted to give a bit of background. The past 2 years have been really difficult for many, and feelings of loneliness and isolation have been particularly high. But which groups are at higher risk of social isolation? Several people are at increased risk, including new mothers, children and young people experiencing bullying, people with long-term conditions and disabilities, unemployed adults, older single men, carers and retired people. According to a US study, persistent loneliness and social isolation are associated with poorer self-rated recovery following a crisis, as well as being an identified risk factor for worsening mental health problems. There are also clear links to poor physical health, particularly immune system defenses, another worrying factor in relation to COVID-19. These findings suggest a key role for interventions that aim to alleviate loneliness, which we will hear more about shortly. If you look at the map now, the colours on the map show the proportion of households that are comprised of one person aged over 65 living alone. This analysis aims to highlight the local authorities where people are likely to be dealing with social isolation, the darker areas being more vulnerable. There are 104,000 pensioners in Sussex living alone, which is 60% of pensioner households. It is clear from the map that the coast is an area with a high number of people over 65 living alone. Urban areas will also found to have higher levels of loneliness prevalence. Moving Sounds, working in East Sussex, is one example of how a local group have changed their service to continue to support people to stay connected during lockdown, moving their music for dementia sessions from care homes and community centres to providing doorstep gigs. This short video now will show the group in action. Nothing but blue skies from now on. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, people without access to the internet were already at a significant disadvantage in terms of seeking job opportunities, accessing financial support, ordering online, and connecting with organisations. According to ONS data, 3 million people are offline across the UK. The pandemic has seen a rise in the use of digital services, and this has excluded access for a section of the population. Lack of internet access has left people feeling lonely and inadequate and has stopped children from accessing remote online learning. Ofcom discovered there is a significant digital divide among 50 to 70-year-olds, and only 55% of over 65-year-olds use a smartphone. They also found around 1.8 million children in the UK do not have access to a laptop, computer, or tablet, and more than 880,000 children live in a home with only mobile internet access. However, digital inclusion is not just about being online, it's also about building skills and confidence. These skills are vital for both individuals and the economy. Digital inclusion is about having the right access, skills, motivation, and trust to go confidently to go online. The pandemic has increased inequality in the UK and in Sussex, and the work being done by local groups to support people who are already experiencing disadvantage is never more needed. Sussex, as we know, is a great place to live, but not for everybody. Harnessing the energy of local communities to address the barriers of isolation and disadvantage is one of the key drivers for Sussex Community Foundation. During the pandemic, the need to support these issues became even clearer, and these areas of work were ramped up. One of the priorities of the foundation was to support groups working in this area. From our emergency funds, we awarded over £150,000 in grants for digital projects, including for purchasing IT equipment for staff to move to online service delivery, and over £400,000 for projects reducing social isolation. We hope that today's speakers will help us all to understand more about the impactful work these organisations are doing in their communities, what is required, and where our funds are most needed. So importantly, today, I'd like to therefore welcome our speakers. We have Sofie Franzen, CEO of TogetherCo, Will Callaghan, CEO of TechResort, CIC, and Katie Day, trustee of Wayfinder Women Trust. Each will speak for 10 minutes and we will then open the floor for Q&As. Please put your questions in the chat box throughout. Don't feel you've got to wait until the speakers have finished, and send them in and then we'll go through them in the end. So on to our first speaker, to Sofie from TogetherCo.
Right, thank you so much for the invitation to be part of this fantastic and enlightening kind of string of seminars. It's been really productive and heartwarming, I think, to kind of follow. Slide 2, please. So my name is Sofie and I'm the CEO at TogetherCo. TogetherCo is a loneliness and social isolation charity working in a number of ways in Brighton and Hove to make meaningful connections with and between people. And we've been doing so in various guises for about 2 decades. We have a staff team of 24 and we support about 1,500 people a year. Next slide, please. I think it's fair to say that the pandemic has created a unique window of opportunity to put loneliness at the forefront of everyone's mind. In turn, that allows us to focus on the dramatic effects that we are becoming increasingly aware of on people's physical and mental health. And as Corinne has really helpfully kind of rehearsed in the introduction, our clientele kind of reflects all of the kind of the barriers and kind of collective kind of implications of being lonely. Next slide, please. As you're probably aware, you know, and as Corinne has rehearsed, loneliness and isolation and lack of connection increases an individual's risk of premature death by about 26%, has similar physical impacts of obesity and smoking 15 cigarettes a day, increases likelihood of premature cognitive decline. And so, you know, with all of these kind of this evidence building, it's not rocket science to understand that investing in making people feel more connected makes sense both socially and financially. And TogetherCo runs 2 main services that works on creating connections. One is a befriending scheme, and the other one is our social prescribing service, which works across Brighton and Hove. And I will tell you a little bit more in detail about that in a minute. So our demographic, the people that benefit from our services, are adults of all ages, but in line with what Corinne was highlighting, there are some very kind of strong drivers, factors that most of our beneficiaries have in common. So 76% of our beneficiaries are over 65, and of that 27% are over 85, so very weighted kind of towards the older demographic. They have often a number of vulnerabilities and often multiple and complex needs. 40% self-identifies as living with a long-term health condition, 21% as having a mental health need, and more than 80% of our beneficiaries live alone. So talking to that map we saw earlier. A large number of our beneficiaries are either cared for or providing care for others, and in some instances, actually both. And it's fair to say that our beneficiaries, the kind of the people who are connected with TogetherCo, have been amongst those people sort of most significantly or most immediately impacted by the social isolation and loneliness that lockdown has created. And in the first sort of very heady weeks of lockdown, just to give you a sense of proportion, there was an absolute influx of new referrals, and 171 new people were taken on board as beneficiaries in just a few weeks. That's more than in any individual year previously. So quite a significant scaling up of our delivery. Next slide, please. So TogetherCo Befriending is in essence a good neighbour befriending service where volunteers are matched with lonely or socially isolated individuals in their own communities. It's critical to the success of the matching that we don't match on a first come first serve basis, but actually include very sort of diverse range of factors such as gender, shared origin, shared interest, shared work history, and all sorts of things like that the individual brings to the table as being important to them, in order that we create these kind of well-functioning, really heartfelt relationships that often last a long time. So at any one time, there's about 400 live matches out in the community, and they are individual relationships that does a number of different things. They can be social gatherings where they drink a cup of tea. There's lots of conversations going on around health related kind of benefits that people can have of connecting with different services. So in a way, the volunteers are often sort of a connector or a kind of a conduit for other things other than the social interaction that they're also providing for that socially isolated individual. Often our relationships last for years, and some for more than 10 years of the people who are on our record still. And often also the volunteer bears witness to the end of life for the person that they are befriending, where otherwise there would have been no one to see the passing of that person. And I guess that gives you a scale of this sort of sense of cut-offness and isolation that those people are experiencing. Next slide, please, and please then play the film. I'll show you a little film of what befriending looks like in action.
Hi Ron, it's Amy.
Hello Amy.
How are you today?
Nice to see you.
84-year-old Ron relies on Amy to bring him essential supplies after he struggled to arrange a supermarket delivery.
I made 33 phone calls, but they wouldn't answer. You got through to all the different, press this, press that, and so on and so forth. And then they stopped.
Ron lives in sheltered housing and was referred to the Brighton-based loneliness charity TogetherCo. Now Amy does his shopping and provides some human contact.
When I speak to him on the phone and come round on a Monday and we have a brief chat, it feels like I'm helping him to engage and talk a little bit about what's going on.
Ron is one of a growing number of people needing help during the coronavirus lockdown. The charity says over the past 4 weeks it's seen a 781% increase in demand for its services compared with the same period last year.
Most of the people that we talk to are experiencing quite a change in their mental health as well because of the lockdown that they're experiencing, and that's, I think, for a lot of people is a big change, especially where they had been previously fairly independent.
But the charity says there has also been a big increase in the number of volunteers. Last year I met Linda, who uses TogetherCo's befriending service to help ease her feeling of isolation. Now she helps others by calling them on the telephone.
It gives me something to look forward to, talking to people. And if I can help just one person, that makes me feel so much better in myself as well. It gives me a sense of purpose, which I haven't had for a while.
I've got 6 bags of shopping for the 4 people that I'm shopping for.
Amy is making a video diary of her volunteer work as a personal record of this unprecedented time. TogetherCo say they're worried that as the lockdown is eased, there may be fewer volunteers and a decrease in support for charities. Charlie Rose, BBC South East Today, Hove.
So next slide, please. So what you can gather from the film is that sense of disconnect that people were experiencing, exacerbated because of COVID, but actually in essence, for a lot of people already a reality. And the other thing to really note is the absolutely essential role that volunteers play within everything that we do at TogetherCo. Our volunteers, and there's about 500 of them at any one time, are out there in the community making those connections happen. The back office support for that is of course important, but the volunteers really are the driving engine. And last year, the volunteers gave more than 15,000 hours of support. And that's equivalent to the time of more than 8 full-time workers working 35 hours a week, every week of the year. I mean, it almost makes me always a little bit kind of emotional looking at it in that way, because it might be an insignificant gesture to spend an hour with the person that you're befriending, but actually when you look at the infrastructure of connectivity that collectively creates across the city, that is, I think, absolutely phenomenal, and one of the most beautiful things about the power of volunteering. Next slide, please. So the other core service that we provide is the social prescribing service. Social prescribing is in essence a connecting intervention where skilled and trained link workers offer person-centered and holistic action planning with people who are struggling to either access services or to kind of prioritize and find their way forward to connect with people and things in their local community. So that can be individuals who can help them, it can be groups, it can be activities. And in essence, the end goal is an attempt to try and grow resilience and independence in people who, for some reason or another, has been disenfranchised and can't really reach out themselves. It's a really known fact nationally and locally that a lot of people go to their GPs for reasons that don't require medical attention, and that's exactly where social prescribing is focusing. We're dealing with all of the kind of the sense of disconnect, loneliness, and the associated low mood that often accompanies that. So link workers make thousands of onwards referrals every year to a whole host of different agencies. And the key here is to understand that every individual that comes forward for support is actually in charge of and able to make their own action plan and pathway forward. So not one support journey looks like the other. So 324 different agencies, for example, were engaged in providing those onward pathways. Next slide, please. Here you see Charles. He's one of our social prescribing clients, and his husband was diagnosed with life-limiting cancer some years ago, and after that followed a whole endless list of kind of changes to daily routines, medical appointments, difficult decisions, and in the end Charles gave up his career to look after his husband. And reached out when he himself had reached a point where he was really struggling to connect and to cope. So he says, when you have been living with a cancer diagnosis for 10 years, you run out of coping mechanisms. And by the time I spoke to my TogetherCo link worker, Mary, I'd tried everything. I had been managing this for years. You reach a breaking point. The world is very frightening and you have no sense of what to do. Mary helped bring some order. She was very clear that we would do whatever is right for me. She was somebody who just listened and instilled a sense of hope and strength. She got the balance right of being therapeutic, but also helped with some practical stuff, and I needed that balance. I'm getting towards the services that will help me longer term. I'm volunteering in a community garden, and I have an Albion in the community walking support body. It is like the jigsaw puzzles being put together. It gives me structure. And I think that idea of a jigsaw being put together is very sort of capitalizing of what link work, social prescribing link work is like. Next slide, final slide. So just a few pointers. What I really want you to take away from this is that whenever you feel called, please get in touch. Volunteering is paramount to what we do, and any volunteers coming forward is a benefit, and it really does make a difference. We are opening up a wider conversation across Brighton and Hove around a coalition for loneliness, and hoping that we can sort of gather momentum around keeping loneliness on the agenda. So thank you very much for letting me air that here, and for being interested in the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. That was really insightful and also really beautiful to hear those examples. I can only imagine the amount of stories that have been shared in those 15,000 hours by the volunteers. And it also makes you think what we can do in our own day-to-day life. So lots of insights there. I'd encourage everyone to have a think about what questions they might have for Sophie and put them in the chat box for the quick Q&A at the end. Thank you. So I'd like to go on to our next speaker, which is Will Callaghan, who is the CEO of TechResort CIC. Thank you, Will.
Hi, everyone. I just need to share my screen, so just bear with me 1 second. So I'm Will Callaghan. I'm the Chief Executive of TechResort, and I'm joined by my colleague Liz Crew, and we're both here to answer questions at the end if you'd like to send some our way. And we've been working over the course of the pandemic and before that trying to reduce the digital divide in East Sussex and elsewhere. So we're going to tell you about that for the next 10 minutes, a little bit about what we do, and trying to explain the digital divide just to try and get some sort of scale around it. We'll introduce you to some of the people we've helped and the lessons that we've learned. There's a national project that we're involved in called the Digital Inclusion Toolkit, which is worth spending a couple of minutes on. And obviously there'll be questions at the end, and we'd love to hear those. So we were founded TechResort was founded in 2013 in Eastbourne to share digital skills. And I think Liz and I and others around us, we really had an itch to scratch, or a couple of itches. First off, advanced digital skills, so skills for work, and how do our young people get into the workplace, and how do lifelong learners return to the workplace, and which is a technological workplace. But I think more importantly, there are people that are disenfranchised by these moves, and there are essential digital skills that they need for life that they don't have. And what, as a society, what are we doing about that? And we've been talking about this for as long as we've been founded, and longer still. And not very much as good has come out of the pandemic, but maybe just an awareness of this issue is something, because we've been able to do more work in the last sort of 2 years than we have in the previous sort of 5 or 6. So that's something, I guess. So the digital divide, then, one of the best measures of this, there are some national measures, but one we tend to use is by Lloyds Bank. It's called the Essential Digital Skills Framework. It's a national measure. They've done it 3 times, and there are kind of grades or measures for each of the regions of the country, and this one's for the southeast. And basically what it's saying is, here are the very basic digital skills that people need to get online. So things like setting up an email account or using bookmarks in a browser, or that sort of thing, and who can do it and who can't. So not so much in East Sussex, in the southeast, because it doesn't go down to East Sussex level, sadly, but 17% don't have the foundation level. So that's the basic stuff that you really need to get online. And that number's not moved over the last 10 years. It's really not moved at all. It's 17 to 20%. And there's a as was introduced at the start, there's a strong link with poverty and deprivation. So the recent University of Cambridge study, and the headline on the screen just tells a story. There's a choice that families make around paying for the Wi-Fi or other essential items, food, heating, and so on. It's as stark as that. And interestingly, those stats on the side, if you've got an income over 40 grand, you're very, very likely to have internet access. 99% have. If you've got an income that's less than that, you know, 6 to 10,000, maybe half have internet access, and we wonder how they can afford it actually. So there's a big divide there. And as I said previously, COVID's made this problem more acute because a lot of services moved online. There's no other way of doing this. You have to do it online. And it's made it more visible because people have been really visibly disenfranchised over this time. Articles on BBC News, universities taking a stand over this. It's a massive problem. It's not going to go away. So let's talk about the people that we've helped. And there's 3 issues here really, and there's more issues, but you know, if you had to sort of distill this down to 3 issues, it's around kit. It's about the devices you need to get online, so laptops, phones, tablets. Some people use those. It's around connectivity. So do you have Wi-Fi? Do you have broadband access? Can you afford that? And it's around confidence. So if you're presented with this thing for the first time, do you know how to get on board? Can we provide some training that's easy to access to help people take their first steps online? The middle one's the hardest, I think, and we'll talk about why. The other 2 we've been able to do a lot about. So in terms of devices, we've been running a very successful laptop refurbishment program for the last couple of years. So people drop their laptops with us, and our team of helpers, we call them elves, and we'll maybe tell you why afterwards, fix them. So they might have the broken screen, we'll try and fix that, or a new hard drive, we'll fix that. Or maybe they just need a clean. Maybe they just need all the software removing and just, you know, new stuff being put on. We've been able to do all of those things. And we've worked with Age UK, Southdown Housing, the Citizens Advice in Hastings, and we've sent laptops to all sorts of people. It's often on request. We get a batch of laptops and somebody says, can you fix these for us, and then distribute them. We've been doing a lot of that to school children, students, people on low incomes, lots of people. And they've made a massive difference. It's amazing what a small thing can do to a family. The other thing we do is that, you know, you're getting a second-hand laptop, but that actually needs to be a nice experience. So Liz found a place to get nice cases from. Liz, you might be able to tell us where that is. And so every laptop gets a new case, and they get a new mouse. So it's a nice mouse, not a mouse that needs a clean. And you know, this is your laptop, you know, for the future, and people look after them and you know, use them. So some of the people that we've helped. So mother and 3 children came to see us. They've got 1 device. Mom's doing a nursing degree. Eldest daughter is doing A-levels, and all the kids are doing homework. And they're having to sort of take sort of allocated slots on the laptop, which means Mom was studying until the early hours, and eldest daughter was doing A-level work until midnight. I mean, that's not sustainable. So we gave them a laptop, and now they're able to get to bed on time. And, you know, it's as simple as that. An elderly lady had an adult daughter in care she wasn't able to speak to. Well, but she had connectivity, so that was okay. So we gave them a laptop and showed them how to use Zoom, and now they talk a lot more, which is brilliant. We've done sort of bulk deliveries of laptops. So to Southdown Housing, for example, they moved all their services online. And the people they were working with, their clients, weren't able to access those. So we helped with training, sort of train the trainer, and provided laptops as well. And the stats there, you know, it shows the difference. You know, that these are invaluable devices that in some cases are life-changing. So it's pretty good. In terms of lessons, so I think the first thing is people they present with a specific thing that they want to know. So they don't want to sit on a course. They don't want to learn things, or a long course. They don't want to learn things that maybe aren't relevant to them. They'll have an issue that they need to deal with now. So our work is very much learner-led. So somebody presents with an issue and we try and help them fix that. And then we tell them how, we make it easy and we tell them how to come back. And they do come back, and we help them again. And we found that that's a good way of doing it. It's more expensive than running courses, but actually this is what's necessary. It's important to take small steps forward and show demonstrable progress. So the Lloyds Essential Skills framework is brilliant, but the kind of skill gaps are too big for people to see a difference. So what we've done is created a kind of microskills framework, I guess, for East Sussex County Council, who we work with a lot, so people can see on this scale how they're improving. And you know, that for some people that's essential. They want to see that progress, and they're now able to do that. Another big issue, something that we've addressed in the last couple of years, is you really need to go where the need is. So we moved our base in lockdown, which was fun, that Liz will tell you about. We were on an FE college, which was great. It's been brilliant being there for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's been really good for our advanced digital skills work. So we've been able to work with students and help them progress. But people can't get to this campus. It's sort of, you know, it's not on a bus route. It's not easy to get to. And if you've got digital inclusion needs, basically we can't help you. We didn't have control of our own front door, which is an essential thing. We need to be able to let people in and out on our time rather than the college's time. So we moved our base. We've just done that. We're open now, and people are coming to see us at our new home on Cavendish Place, and you're very welcome to come along and say hello. And we think that this is something that all towns need. It's not expensive to do. It's somewhere on the high street. If you're stuck with digital skills, you can come and find out and get help. There are so many people that don't coach and that could, and we don't think it's they don't want to. Maybe they just don't feel that they're able to. So it's pretty basic to start. So as a trainer or as someone wanting to be a coach, just ask what the person wants to do, and then show them kindly with patience. And this is what our volunteers and our elves do. It's very basic technical skills and just a bit of patience, and anyone really can be a coach. And I think one of the ways we'll crack this is more people on the front line, people working with folks directly in their homes. We feel that if they were able to take 5 minutes out of an appointment and help with a digital thing, that would actually make a lot of difference. We're partnering, I'll tell you in a minute about a project we're doing with Leeds City Council. They do this a lot, and it's made a massive difference to populations up there. Rather than having another appointment to go to for digital skills, just get it in the services you're already getting. It makes a massive difference. I think the final lesson we've learned is around lack of connectivity. And I mentioned this a few slides ago, is that you may well have the confidence and you have a laptop, but how do you pay for the Wi-Fi? And this is something you can't get away from. So what we've done is provide 3G dongles that we paid for, partly from, I'm not sure if Sussex Community Foundation has paid for it, but it's that kind of funder that's paid for this kind of work. So we've got dongles that can be lent, but the tokens that are on there run down and then they're not used anymore, and then you have to charge them up, and that costs money. So it's not a sustainable solution. And I think as a county and as a country, we've really got to look long and hard at this and understand the cost of people not being able to get online and have ideas about what we can do there. We're very up for a conversation about this. Almost done. The Digital Inclusion Kit is a national project that we're involved in, separately to all the work I've described. So we partnered with Leeds City Council and Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities to build a national digital inclusion website. And here it is. You can go and look at it today, digitalinclusionkit.org. And the idea is that councils are in the driving seat for digital inclusion programs, and East Sussex is very advanced in what they're doing. They're doing a good job. So they're not necessarily delivering all the services, but they're coordinating for a lot of different bodies. And this site is principally for them. When we spoke to councils around the country, most of them are only really sort of cottoning on to the fact that digital inclusion is a massive, massive issue. And they're starting their programs and they need help to start and not reinvent the wheel. That's what this site does. So if you'd like to talk to us more about that, we'd be delighted to fill you in. Thank you very much for your time and for listening. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Will. That was fascinating. And what I really liked about that is the simplicity and the practical application to and solutions to a problem, and also in a way that maybe can engage people to be able to help, because not everyone wants to give a vast amount of time. So there's lots of different ways that people can get involved there. That was really interesting. Thank you. I'm sure people have got questions and they've started coming through, and also connections with you. Can people put their comments or questions in the chat function, and then we can come to them afterwards? Thank you. So last but not least, we have Katie Day, trustee of the Wayfinder Woman Trust. Can I hand over to you, Katie? Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne, and thank you very much for inviting Wayfinder to be part of this webinar this afternoon. I'm one of the trustees of Wayfinder Women Trust in Eastbourne. Can I have the next slide, please? So who are we? Well, we're an entirely voluntary-led charity, and it's a charity that is run by women for women. It was started 10 years ago by our founder, Laura Murphy, and we help those who are feeling anxious and uncertain about themselves or their future, and we help them by building their self-confidence and giving them the skills so that they can challenge any barriers that they feel maybe they're facing, and help them find a better life. And we do this through a variety of free workshops and coaching. We also do online and face-to-face. Obviously, the face-to-face has been incredibly challenging over the last couple of years, but we're now able to go back to that. We launched our new hub just around the corner from Eastbourne Station in August last year, and we are now open again for those face-to-face meetings. So we offer a drop-in advice and support service in that hub in Eastbourne. Next slide, please. So some of our achievements and some of our highlights. Laura started Wayfinder Woman 10 years ago, and over that time, the charity has provided advice and support to very many women, well over 1,000 women. We've received grants every year totaling over £155,000, and we've run in excess of 200 free workshops on all sorts of topics requested by women. So we don't tell women what they need, they tell us what they want, and then we provide them for that community. Over 80% of the hub volunteers have been seeking work, but have gained employment as a result of coming in and attending some of the free workshops that the charity runs. The charitable status was achieved in October 2017, and one of our greatest achievements was last year when we won the Queen's Award for Voluntary Service, which was an amazing achievement for the charity. During the pandemic, as it has been for every community and organisation, incredibly challenging. However, we were able to move into that digital space, and we continue to deliver over 30 workshops online during lockdown, and we supported well over 340 women during that time. We were able, because it was digital, to actually get a global reach. So our support extended not just from Eastbourne, but actually other areas of the UK and in Australia, the USA and Ireland. We are completely voluntary run, and the volunteers have given over 4,650 hours of their time. Back in lockdown, Laura initiated the wonderful project of Women in Lockdown. She recognised that in history, women's voices are very rarely captured, and she wanted to change this. I mean, lockdown was an incredible experience for everybody globally. So she put it out there for women to share their stories, the Women in Lockdown project, to share their stories of what was happening for them at that time, how they felt, to share their fears, to share sometimes their joy, to share their challenges. We weren't expecting very many women to come forward. We had over 100 stories, and it was produced in a most wonderful book, Women in Lockdown book, that grabbed the attention of the British Library, and it is now in every library in the UK, which is an amazing achievement. We also ran an online International Women's Day event last year, and we had 8 amazing speakers from 8 continents, 8 different countries around the world, with over 200 women from around the world who were registered to come along. So our reach from the digital format is wide. Next slide, please. So what have we been doing so far within the digital engagement arena? So some of our past activities, as one of the initial partners of Wayfinder Woman was Tech She Can, which is a national campaign that was headlined by PricewaterhouseCoopers. We ran a STEM conference in 2017 with Dame Stephanie Shirley and Professor Karen Cham as the speakers. And we've also run a series of workshops. Digitally Terrified funded by Eastbourne Borough Council, Understanding Tech with TechResort, our previous speaker, and also using social media, which we continue to repeat, to help women engage with communities and find work, facilitated by local female-run micro businesses. And in fact, one of the women who attended one of the TechResort sessions actually discovered that she had a real love of tech, and she started to learn coding, and she now supports Wayfinder Women with our website. So that's a great connection between the previous speaker and Wayfinder Women. We've trained our volunteers in tech skills so they can go out and help the women who come into the hub and are seeking similar support and similar help. We've linked to training where possible with the AQA Unit Award Scheme, so participants can gain certificates that they can then include on their CVs, which of course then leads into them being able to perhaps put themselves forward for jobs that they might not otherwise have done. Next slide, please. So why are we focusing on technology at the moment? Well, currently there is a shortage of people with IT and tech skills in all areas of industry, and tech roles offer a high earning potential and lots of flexibility for everybody. And far future planning sees AI taking over multiple tasks and roles in the future, from the factory to professional occupations, even such as accountancy. And for people without those AI and tech skills, they will not be in a position to gain employment or access services in the future. And research shows that women do not engage with tech at the same level as men. There's some interesting research at secondary school that up to a certain level, boys and girls are equal with their tech knowledge, and at some point the girls choose other subjects to go into. So it really needs to start at education level to keep those young women involved and interested in tech as a potential career for them. So the conclusion is that women will be increasingly ghettoized as a result of the digital future if the status quo remains. So it's crucial that we engage women in AI and digital platforms, as that ensures the future employment prospects. Next slide, please. So our aims, we have a Digital Ambassadors Project, and the aims of the Digital Ambassadors Project is to recruit, train and support 10 digital ambassadors that can go out and support women in the community. So the digital ambassadors will help 4 or more women each across East Sussex, and not just Eastbourne, but across the whole county, to safely access the digital platforms in order to build their confidence, their skills and their motivation, which will therefore help to improve their life chances. They're going to be face-to-face run workshops to help women stay safe, to learn new skills, to raise awareness of the digital services and products that are available to them, and to help improve their employment opportunities in the future. They will provide a safe space for women to come into our hub, access the technology if they are unable to do so safely in their own homes, or if they do not have access to Wi-Fi. And we've heard that lack of access to Wi-Fi is a really big issue. Next slide, please. So the current position is that we have a project manager and 5 digital ambassadors who are registered with us, and with a national training program that's run by Digita. The digital ambassadors are going to help those 4 women each, and they're going to continue to run the face-to-face workshops and to provide that safe space. But we do have some challenges. So the next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Some of the challenges, the current position is that we didn't get the level of funding requested that we needed. So we have only half. We wanted 10, we currently only have 5 of our digital ambassadors. The only thing that hasn't changed is the number of women that they will help. So they have been recruited. There's been a slower take up of the digital ambassadors that the charity hoped for. That's in a big area down to the pandemic, restricting the ability to promote the project. We can only use social media, as public areas were not accepting the leaflets. So we weren't able, we spent a lot of time going around and leaving leaflets around Eastbourne, but we were, of course, not able to do that because there were no venues that were taking leaflets. So it had to be only via social media. And of course, we're trying to reach people that may not have access to that social media. Hence, it further exacerbated the issue and the problem. We hope to have 10 books straight away. We're now running a rolling recruitment program. The digital ambassadors are starting to train with Digital Unit. That will allow them to gain the necessary skills to identify the issues and transfer their knowledge in a way that will help others to learn. It has taken longer than we anticipated, but we're now promoting the project with posters. We are now able to put up posters. We're now able to distribute the flyers in community spaces, in supermarkets, in libraries. So it's a real push now to get this Digital Ambassadors program and project running. We've engaged with students from Brighton University. The students were asked to choose one charity that they wanted to help. They had a list of 25 and there were 12 students, and 3 of those 12 students chose Wayfinder Woman to help. So they are supporting us with this. And that's a real added value to the project that we didn't anticipate at the beginning. So we have a number of agents now, but reduced to the number that we wanted. So there are a lot of challenges. You know, lockdown has created a lot of challenges for a lot of organisations, a lot of charities, and a lot of social enterprises. We are coming out of that now, but we do need that really big push to get women in the community really excited and eager and keen to gain that digital expertise for themselves. That increases their social connection, which we know is really, really important. It offers far more opportunities for them in the working environment. So thank you very much for inviting Wayfinder to be part of this great webinar this afternoon. And of course, I'll be here for any questions.
Thank you, Katie. That's really exciting. And I can imagine that people would want to get involved because it's incredibly empowering and enabling for the people who participate, I would imagine. So thank you very much. I'd encourage the participants today to send any questions to Katie in the chat box. We now are moving into the question and answers now. So I have a couple of questions. I think also at this point, I need to invite Kevin Richmond as well into the panel, who's the CEO at Sussex Community Foundation. He'll join us to help answer the questions. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us. So let me go to the first question for Sofie. Lots of questions for you about TogetherCo, as you can imagine. I thought one of the interesting ones was how transferable would the TogetherCo model be to other locations?
That's an interesting question. I think as a result of lockdown, befriending became something that a lot of people who weren't doing befriending to start with actually thought about doing, because it could happen over the telephone, and it could sort of mean that they could in some way keep a connectivity to the people that they'd previously been in touch with. So I think in terms of the idea that by giving a little bit of time, connecting people one-on-one, that's a very replicable thing. But of course, as I was alluding to in the presentation, that's not a straightforward process, and the matching of people to sustain those relationships and to safeguard those relationships requires resource. The social prescribing work is something that is taking a much more prominent place nationally, with the link workers entering primary care networks, and with health services and councils collaborating to formulate what social prescribing in the community is going to look like. All of this is fairly straightforward. It really is about good listening skills. It's about enabling people to come together, and largely, for our case, about connecting with volunteers who can carry out the actual connecting.
Thank you, Sofie. I've got a couple more questions, but I'll come on to the others first. Will, from TechResort. There was a question about how do the planned proposed increases in broadband costs potentially impact access for those you work with?
I think they can't afford it already, and any increase in costs will mean they're even less likely to afford it than before. So it would make no difference. They can't go online anyway.
Right, so it's
even they're divided, and they're even more disenfranchised. So I mean, we've had ideas about dealing with this at a small scale. So Liz can maybe talk more practically about the actual programs, but providing when you provide a device, provide a dongle that goes with it. And we've not got very deep pockets, but we can afford some of that, and we've been doing that. particularly for people who aren't very confident getting online, they're taking their first steps. You don't feel you're able to make this investment for something you don't really use or understand. So we can make that for you, and you can get to a point where you think, well, maybe it's already. I think there's work around accessibility of public Wi-Fi. So, you know, local authorities have a role to play, and a lot of them already do, but maybe these things aren't quite as accessible as they ought to be. I think the old BT with FON, I think it's called BT with BT Wi-Fi now. I think there's potentially more they can do around advertising that. We've talked to a couple, I can talk all day about this, I'm really sorry. We've talked to a couple of local providers around trialing free or low cost access. And I'm afraid we've sort of met with very little response to that. It will cost them money. So they don't really want to do that. But I think it's something we ought to keep pushing at. And I think ultimately this is a national problem that the government needs to look at. So I think in the last Labour manifesto, there was talk of universal broadband access that was laughed at because people didn't think it was serious. But actually, this is a serious problem and it needs big answers to it. I'm not sure if that's the right answer. Yeah, it's shown that, you know, maybe that's not the right answer, but it was the right scale. And we should talk about this as a country.
COVID should certainly shine a light on that, shouldn't they, in terms of the necessity. On another practical question as well, Will, does TechResort provide a kind of self-assessment test for people who are interested in doing the volunteer coaching? So some people might think they're not competent enough. So is there suggestion or assessment for who can help and get involved?
I mean, I think Liz is definitely better placed, but my answer is probably just drop us an email, because I'm sure you are. What do you think, Liz?
Yeah, the skills, we don't actually have an assessment at the moment. We're only just starting doing public sessions again, but it's a really good idea that we could perhaps do something that would be directed at people who might want to help others. East Sussex Council, with their IT for You at Home service, are already talking to us about whether we can train some frontline workers in exactly those sorts of skills. The biggest problem for frontline workers is their lack of time to learn extra, or their perception is they need to learn extra skills to do this, and to find the time to deliver that extra training or receive training when they're already pushed for time. I think that's probably the major killer on that at the moment. But we're open to suggestions. If somebody said, oh, could you do a Saturday drop-in where people could come and learn how good they'd be at coaching? Yeah, bring it on. As Will says, contact us. We're open to any ideas.
Okay, thank you. There's lots of commonalities here in your volunteering strands with all three of you. Going over to Katie, because I'm mindful of time. Last question, and those we haven't answered, we will get back to you afterwards as well, by the way, with some answers. Katie, interested to hear about your volunteers gaining employment after being involved in a volunteering capacity, and is that also a kind of key aim of yours as well?
It is, yes. Thank you for that question. That's the main aim of Wayfinder Women, actually, is to give women the skills and also the confidence to get back into the workplace. So we work very closely with the local business community, and once a year we have a business related event where we invite the local business community to come along, and we talk about what we're doing and to meet some of the women that have gone through our courses. So our aim is to give women not only the confidence but the skills as well to go back into the workplace.
Okay, thank you. It's been fascinating this hour listening to you all, and I know you're all itching to share more information, but it's just testimony to how important the funding is and how much you do. I don't know how you possibly quantify the value you get from the funding that you receive. I need to hand over now to Kevin, who's going to do closing remarks and thanks to everyone. So Kevin, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corinne. This is really a case of, well, follow that. I always say that when I do these seminars, but really thank you, Will and Sofie and Katie, for your fabulous presentations. I think if anyone was in any doubt of the value of small local charities, I think today has dispelled any possible question of that. I mean, just hearing the stories that we've heard today, we've heard the scale of the problem. We've heard the scale of the problem of loneliness and digital isolation, how much that was exacerbated by the pandemic, huge increase in both of those issues, huge need for more digital connectivity and huge lack of it for millions of people. But what we've seen here, I think, today demonstrated is the strategic and incisive analysis of these three organisations. How you've looked at the problem, you've identified the need, you've identified the big strategic issues like the cost of Wi-Fi, you know, the number of people who are isolated. Those are big, huge policy issues. But you've gone in and you've attacked the issues where we can attack it. You know, you're lobbying on the big issues, but you're really working on the small issues. And the thing that strikes me very deeply here is that loneliness is clearly one of the biggest issues in our society. It has a huge impact for people, but it's also arguably one of the easiest to cure. You know, we see from TogetherCo, actually just bringing people together, giving people someone to talk to, it has a transformational impact on people's lives. Giving someone a laptop, but teaching them how to use it overcomes so much of the issue. You know, but I think the power of these organisations is fabulous, and thank you for the examples that you've given. One of the things I particularly want to highlight is that not only are these organisations looking at these issues in such an incisive way, but they're giving people the solutions and giving people the self-respect. It's not about people coming as passive recipients of a service. They're actively part of this organisation. I loved hearing the example from TogetherCo of one of the women talking about how she received the service because she was lonely, and then saying, actually, this helped me so much, I wanted to help other people. You know, so she becomes part of the organisation. She's not a passive recipient, she's part of this solution for other people. And that's one of the key fantastic elements about local charities, that they can do that in a way that no one else can. So I just want to say thank you so much for your fabulous presentations. Thank you for all the work you do. And I hope, you know, I know there are many other people on this call today who are doing similar work, and thank you for your work. And for those of you who are our donors and supporters, I hope you get a glimpse of the importance of these local charities, and thank you for everything that you do to enable us to keep supporting these groups. So I want to say, one last thing is, I think, again, Corinne's already said it, but it's fantastic looking at the chat and all the connections that are going on, and people saying, hey, I can help with this, or I can help with that. You know, this is just brilliant stuff and great to see. Thank you. So if you want to find out more about this area of work, or you want to find out more about the organisations you've heard from today, please do get in touch with us. You all know how to find us, I'm sure. If you'd like to help support our work, of course, as always, we're always open to donations, as you all know. If you're looking for funding for this kind of work, of course, although the Crisis Fund is no longer open, we are running the Winter Support and Recovery Fund across East and West Sussex, thanks to the 2 county councils, and that's open on a rolling basis. And of course, we've got a wealth of other funds available through our main grant programme, and the next closing date is Friday the 6th of May. So do get in touch with us if you've got any questions about applying for a grant. So in the meantime, yeah, just from all of us, huge thank you to Will, to Liz, to Sofie, and to Katie, to Corinne for hosting this, to McCulloch Moore for doing all the organising, and actually particularly to Zoe and Stephen, who've done all the planning for this session. You know, you've all done a fantastic job. So thank you very much. You know, please keep up the good work. Keep in touch with us. Huge thank you again, and yeah, thank you for joining us today. And please do have a lovely evening. Thank you.